gonna get started. So let's look at where we are. We are on lesson 5 of 6 of our financial maths. So this is our last week dealing with finance. I'm sure you guys must be jumping for joy. I know finance is not the most entertaining topic, but unfortunately it is a must. So one of our last topics, exchange rates. What do exchange rates mean? Now, I don't know if anybody wants to maybe try and attempt to tell me what they think an exchange rate is, what it means, how it's used. I'll wait for maybe 2 seconds to see if somebody has something to say. And while I do that, um, let me just update this. Nobody with an answer? Okay. What I do know is that everybody has heard of an exchange rate. Tanelia, beautiful. Love your explanation. And that is essentially exactly what it is. When we sorry. No. Sorry, my pen was having some issues. When we look at what an exchange rate is, an exchange rate is literally converting different currencies to another currency. Now, if that still didn't make sense to you, let's take it back. Let us think of what we use for money in South Africa. In South Africa, we use rands. Okay. We know those lovely 1 rand, 2 rand, 5 rand coins, cents coins, not really in use too much anymore, but still very, very present. We know our notes, we know those currencies. However, if I had to go to America, would I be able to give them a 10 rand note to buy something? No, they're going to look at you and they're going to laugh at you. They're going to ask you, what is this? Because they don't know about our money in their country. In our country, we know about our money. But in their country, they know about their money. And so, when we talk about an exchange rate, it literally means exchanging one currency for another. Now, you might be saying, but ma'am, why is this even a thing? If I'm going to exchange rands for dollars, it's just going to be the same. But it's not going to be the same, and let me tell you why. Because each country's currency has a different value. So, South African currency, and I'm sure most of you might know, is not as highly valued as the American dollar. Now, the value of a currency is affected by many, many things. That is the supply of the currency, that is the demand of the currency. If any of you are doing economics, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That is the economy of the country, the perception of investors of the country. That is what influences our exchange rates. And so what the exchange rate really is it's giving the value of one currency in relation to another. And so when we go and we want to go to America, literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a shop. I'm going to give them maybe 2,000 rand, and they are going to give me back a certain amount of dollars. Now, they're not going to give me back $2,000. They're going to give me back, maybe if I gave them 2,000 rand, maybe I would get back $800. Okay. And so why is that? It's because South African rand is not worth as much as the US dollar. And so when we look at how exchange rates are given, exchange rates, they give us the value of one currency in relation to another. Now, there's 2 different ways we can write exchange rates. Exchange rates can be given directly, or they can be given indirectly. And let us look at what they mean. So I'm just scratching this out. Don't even bother about that. What they mean is that when I have a direct exchange rate, it's telling me with 1 rand. How many units of foreign currency can I buy? And I can see here with 1 rand, I can buy 0.053367 US dollars. With 1 rand, I can buy 0.050173 euros. By the way, if you don't know the symbol for a euro, it is that. I'm lying. Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. That is the symbol for the euro. This is the symbol for the dollar. And this is the symbol for the pound. Now, I know the euro and the pound look very similar, but I always think of the euro as almost like a C that just tries to look like an E. I don't know how that helps me, but it does. You figure out your own method, how you are going to understand, and that's going to be that. And so lastly, if I have 1 rand and I go to the shop, I give them 1 rand, I tell them, please give me back pounds, they're going to give me back 0.043616 pounds. Now obviously these are a lot of decimals, so we'll probably only get 0.44 pounds back. It is very little. And so this is the direct exchange rate. It shows you for 1 rand directly in our currency, how many foreign currency units can I buy? Now, when we look at an indirect exchange rate, what it tells us is it tells us with 1 foreign currency unit, how many dollars or how, ignore that sentence. Let me start again. What it tells us is it tells us for every 1 foreign currency unit. So a foreign currency unit can be dollars, euros, pounds, baht. Where do they use baht? I think Thailand. Baht, dollars, Namibian dollars, whatever. For any currency that's a foreign currency unit, for every one of those foreign currency units, how many rands can I get back? And so we see here for $1, I'm going to get 18.73 rands. For €1, I'm going to get 19.93 rands. And for £1, I'm going to get 22.92 rands. So if we walk into a shop and we give them 100 rand and we ask them for dollars, they're going to take your 100 rand and they're going to multiply it by the 0.05. And then if we're coming back now from the USA and we have leftover money, for every dollar I give them back, they're going to give me back 18 rand 73. Now, what you guys should know is that these rates are not fixed rates. These rates change hourly. They change minute by minute. So the exchange rate that applies today is not going to be the exchange rate that will apply tomorrow. It's going to be different because these exchange rates fluctuate based on, like I said, supply, demand, economy, and so forth. So that was a lot of explanation, and I feel like I sort of went around in a little bit of circles, but I just wanted to explain it fully so that we can all wrap our mind around the concept of exchange rates and how it works. Up until this point, are we all good? Do we have any questions? I saw some thumbs up. Abu was saying no. I'm assuming it's no for no questions. You guess not. Guess not what, Narisha? You guess not that you have no questions? There's actually not many of us in here today. Now that I'm looking at it. No Q&A. Okay, my voice is so done. But we soldier on and let us move on to some questions. They're probably studying. Very true. Normal number of people. Actually, Abu, you're right. Because I remember last time you told me that there were normally 14 of us. So actually maybe we do have a full class. Anywho, moving on, we have some questions. Now, I kind of want us to only work on one question at a time. So, immediately, what I want to tell you guys is please don't read the questions past what we're doing, or don't focus on them because you're going to miss the current question. Um, so, let us look at our questions. Firstly, we have Nicola, who went to Italy. She exchanged 800 pounds into euros. The exchange rate was £1 is 1.4 euros. And the question here says change 800 pounds into euros. Now, this is a little bit of a badly worded question, but they're basically asking us how many euros did we get for our 800 pounds? And what I want to show you guys is I want to show you guys a shortcut for all of your exchange rate questions, because I know sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to understand what is what and when are we multiplying and when are we dividing, and it just doesn't make sense. So what I want you guys to do, first things first, I always want you to set up a column for your two different exchange rates, or your two different currencies, let me say that. You're going to set up two different columns for your two different currencies. Then under each um, column, I want us to create an equation, and I want us to create two equations. The first equation is going to be your exchange rate. We know for every £1, I'm going to get 1,4 euros. Now, I know that I have 800 pounds. I'm going to put that 800 underneath my pounds column, but I'm trying to figure out how many euros that is going to give me. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to set up your columns. You're going to put underneath your columns two equations. Once you've set up your two equations, I want you guys to cross multiply your equations. And that means you're going to multiply these two together, and you are going to multiply these two together. And what that is going to do is that is going to give you a final equation that is going to be number 3, and that is going to lead you to your answer. So x times 1 over here is going to be x. By the way, it doesn't matter which side you put your answers on, as long as you do the multiplication correctly. And then on this side, we have 800 times 140. And let's do the math over here. 800 times 1,4 is going to be what? 1120. I agree, Narisha. They are super, super fast. Cool. So 1120. And that is my answer. And this is how you're going to set up every single exchange rate question. It's always going to be the same format. So when you do it in this format, you never really have to think about, do I multiply? Do I divide? What am I doing? All you do is you set up your equations and then you solve. And I think that's something we're all comfortable with, we're all used to, is solving equations. So I always take it back to this method because it is the easiest method and the most foolproof method to avoid making mistakes. So now that we have that done, and I want to move this up a little, that was question 1. Let us look at question 2. We have a new TV in Tokyo costing 53,380 yen. We have our exchange rate with yen and pounds, and they want to know how much is the TV going to cost in pounds. So immediately what I'm seeing is I need to convert this 53,380 yen into pounds. I'm going to save myself the hassle of thinking too hard about it. I'm going to literally follow steps. I have yen and I have pounds. Okay, I've set up a column for both of them. I know for £1 I'm going to get 157 yen, and I know that I have 53,380 yen that I need to buy a TV, but I don't know how much that's going to be in pounds. So I want you guys to see how pounds was my one that was missing. So my X is now going to go underneath my pounds column. Okay. And so what you're going to do, you're going to cross multiply to set up your third equation. When you cross multiply, you are going to get 157x. And let me do this a little bit closer. You're going to get 157x, which is going to equals to 53,380. To get x by itself, we're going to do exactly what Abu suggested. We are going to divide by 157. And what is my answer? We are going to get 314. Do we have to draw the symbol for euros after we get the answer? Yes, we do. And that's such a good point over here. Here you have to go euros. And here my unknown was pounds. Okay, so that's number 2 done. Then we look at question 3. It says, in Lisbon, a watch, I don't know why I just said that like that. A watch costs 80 euros. In Liverpool, the same watch costs 65 pounds. So this is sort of like if you think, I don't know if you guys know about the Big Mac index. I think that's what it's called. It basically compares the price of a Big Mac in all the different countries. So if you look at the Big Mac price in South Africa versus the Big Mac price in the USA, it really tells you about like the cost of living and the cost of items in different countries. Because remember also, different countries price their goods differently. If you think about a country that's like super inland, if it's importing stuff, it's going to have to make their products more expensive because now you're importing, then you have to not only get it from the harbor, now you have to travel it across the continent into the middle where your little country is. So goods are not priced the same in different countries. So when you have two different currencies and you are asked to compare costs, what we know is we can't compare things that are in different units. So immediately I know I have to convert to one currency and then I can compare in one currency. Now, they've asked me here to work out the difference in cost. And so essentially, they are asking me here to compare. But now they haven't told me whether I need to convert or whether I need to find the difference in euros or whether I need to find the difference in pounds. But we can do both. So you don't have to do both, but I'm going to show you how to do both. So you are only going to do one of the methods for a question like this. You are going to set up pounds. We are going to set up euros. I know the exchange rate is £1 is 1.25 euros. I know that I have a watch that costs 80 euros. So let's convert my 65 pounds into euros as well. No. And actually, what I want to do first is I want to convert to pounds first because I want to show you guys that there's actually two ways you could have done this. So what we could do is we could say, okay, I have euros. Let's convert my 65 pounds. So I know I have 65 pounds, but I want to know how many euros that's going to convert to. And now that I have this, it is going to be x is equals to 1,25 multiplied by 65. And what are we getting here? X is going to be equals to what? 81.25, 100%, 81.25. So now if we were to calculate, and this is not just 81.25, but it's 81.25 euros. So if we were now going to calculate the difference, it would be 81.2, and again, I'm writing the wrong exchange rate. This was, the missing one that I had here was, just hold on. Did I make a mistake? Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, we are correct. So this is actually euros. because I converted my 65 pounds. So my difference here is going to be 81.25 less 80. Okay, where did I get the 80 from? This was the original price in Lisbon. Okay, and my difference is going to be 1.25 euros. Now, what we could do is we could also, if we wanted to give the difference in both currencies, I could just take this difference and apply the exchange rate to it. And I can see from my exchange rate, 1.25 euros is going to give me £1. Okay. So I could literally apply my exchange rate and say that the difference is either 1.25 euros or £1. Now, if we had converted it the other way, let's look at what that would have looked like. The other thing you could have done is this. We could have said 1 is equals to 1.25, but let's now convert my 80 euros. I have a watch that costs 80 euros. I want to know how much is it going to cost in pounds based on my exchange rate. Okay? And if we look, we're going to cross multiply. We're going to get 1.25x is equals to 80. We're going to divide both sides by 1.25. And what are we getting? We should be getting 64. And Abu is in the chat with the correct answer, 64. And then you can calculate the difference. And you would have said the difference is equals to 65 that we got from there minus my 64. And it gives me £1. Okay. We've done 3 questions. Please let me know, you guys, how are we feeling about these kinds of questions? Are we okay? Are we all good? Are we ready to go on to the next question? Maybe some reactions would be great so I can see where we're at. Thank you. Okay. Whoa, that was a lot of info. Let us move on. Okay. We have our last question here on exchange rates before we move on to something a little bit different. It says below are the prices of the same car in different countries. They've given us in the USA the same car. If we're buying a Honda Civic, it's going to cost us 20,000 US dollars. If we go to Ireland, the same car is going to cost us 17,500 euros. If we go to England, it's going to cost us 15,000 pounds. And if we go to Japan, that same car, our Honda Civic, is going to cost 3 million yen. The question is, in which country is the car the best value? Again, a question where we have to compare. And what I want you guys to think of is, think of if you were given a question to say which length is the longest, and they gave you 1 centimeter, 1,000 millimeters, 1 kilometer, 10,000 meters. What would you do? You wouldn't guess. You would convert each one of those units into one. So maybe you would convert all of them into meters. And once they're all in meters, then you would be able to compare. That's the exact same thing we're going to do for exchange. Whenever we see multiple currencies and they've asked us to compare, either compare the cost, what's the difference in cost, what is the best value, the only way you'll be able to compare is when you convert everything to one currency. Now, they didn't tell us which currency we had to convert to, but based on the exchange rates that they've given me on the top here, I'm thinking all of these exchange rates are a direct exchange rate for pounds. So I'm thinking it's going to be the easiest to convert everything to pounds. So let's do that. Let's set it up for the USA. We have our US dollar column, my pound column. I don't know how many pounds this is going to be, but what I do know is that for every £1, I am going to get $1.25, and that is this exchange rate over here. So now I'm going to cross multiply. It's going to be 1.25 times x, which is going to give me 1.25x, which is equals to 28,000. Get x alone. We divide both sides. And tell me what you guys are getting for x. Abu, you want a brain break? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you the bad news. There is no brain break. 16,100%. Let's move on to our euros over here. So I'm going to set up the pounds column over here. I don't know how many pounds my 17,500 euros is going to be, but what I do know is that 1 pound is equals to 1,18 euros. We're going to cross multiply. To get our final answer, we are basically going to be dividing 17,500 by 1,18. And we're going to get 14,830,51. Now, I know I've skipped steps here, you guys, but I think we've done it enough times for you guys to understand how I got this answer. Ooh, for you to understand how I got this answer. If you don't be shy, raise your hand. I'll explain. Here, this is already in pounds, so I know I don't have to stress too much about converting that. And let's lastly convert our yen into pounds. Okay. So I don't know how many pounds this 3 million yen is going to be, but what I do know is that 1 pound is going to give me 140 yen. Cross multiply, you are going to get that, what does that say? You are going to get that x, and it's actually going to be 140x is going to be equals to 3 million yen. We're going to divide both sides by 140, and x is going to be equal to 21,428.57. Now, based on this calculations we have done, you guys tell me which country is the country where the car has the best value. 100% it's going to be Ireland. And so you would conclude and say, Ireland is the country in which the car has the best value. Why did we conclude that? Well, because we've converted every single one of them to pounds. And from all of these pound values that I now have, I can see, okay, in Ireland, the car only costs 14,830 pounds, whereas every other country, it's way more than that. So Ireland is the one with the best value. We are now closing up exchange rates. So I'm giving everybody a last chance to let me know how they're doing, to ask questions where we feel, because we are moving on to a different topic. Anything? Okay, let's move on. We are gonna look at something challenging. So there we go. No, there we go. Now, let's read the question. Simon deposited 1,000 Rand into a bank. 3 years later, he deposited a further 2,000 Rand into the bank. The interest rate for the 5-year savings period was 18% per annum, compounded annually. Calculate the future value of his investment at the end of the savings period. Okay. Narisha, glad to hear it. Anybody have any idea how we would approach this question? I am not really gonna do it by myself as such until I see someone steering me in the right direction. Tell me, how do we approach this question? What would we do? What formula are we going to use? How are we going to use the formula? How is this going to work? Abu has said make a timeline. And so that makes sense. What is the timeline going to help me with though, Abu? Compound interest, 100%. Sanila, we are using compound interest. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Seeing how the values change, and especially how much it changes after the deposit. Okay, so let's look at what Abu is saying. On day 1, so in other words, we call it year 0 or day 1, we invest 1,000 rand. Okay, now this money is in here for these 3 years. But then at the end of these 3 years, I now add another 2,000 rand to this investment. Okay. And then we have our money in our account for another 2 years. So with the formula that I have and with the formula that I know that we can calculate it as A is equals to P 1 plus I to the exponent of N. Okay. Now, how am I going to put this in if I have 1,000 here and then I have 2,000 there? Like, how am I going to put it in? And I don't know why I put an equals to sign there. That was not supposed to be there. So how am I going to do it? No. Anybody with an idea for me? Are we going to break it down? Basically, Sadili, we are going to break it down. We are going to treat this as 2 separate investments. Now, why? Because what basically happened is we had this 1,000 rand and this grew interest for 3 years. So we're going to treat this as investment number 1. And then at the end of these 3 years, what we basically did is we took the money that we got from those 3 years, we added 2,000 rand to it, and we reinvested it. And so basically, we're going to treat this as investment number 2. Okay. Now, just to actually discuss what my variables are going to look like before we actually put it into our formula, I can see over here my A value is what I don't know, but let's call it X for now. My P value is going to be my 1,000. My I value is going to be 18%, and my N value is going to be 3. Now, once we get to the purple side, my A value is what's unknown, but my P value is now going to be X plus 2,000 rand. Where did X come from? X was the future value of my investment number 1. Okay, so we took that future value, we added 2,000 rand, and we basically reinvested. So that is going to be my P value. My I is still going to be 18%, and my N is going to be 2. So now that I know all of my variables, I'm just going to plug it in, and let's see what I get. This is going to be 1,001 plus 18% exponent of 3. What are we getting? So Abu, you were close, but not quite. Remember, we can't just say 2,000 rand and go on with it. What we could do is we could calculate the value of the 1,000 rand over 5 years, and we could then calculate the value of 2,000 rand over 2 years. That's the other way we could do it. But if we're going to use 1,000 rand, then it would have to be over 5 years. Because remember, we earned interest on my 1,000 rand over 5 full years. And I would have to do a separate calculation for my 2,000 rand that was only invested for 2 years. Then we're going to add the 1,000 and the 2,000 then for the 2 years. Well, we're not just adding 1,000, remember, Abu, we're adding my future value of the 1,000 rand. So we're calculating the interest earned over these 3 years. We get a future value, and then I add that future value to 2,000 rand. Okay. So let us go and do this calculation. Thank you, Abu, Sanele, Shulani, for the answers, 0.03. And then when we do now our final calculation, we write in our formula all over again. 1 plus I, variable of n. My p-value is going to be 1,643.03 plus my 2,000 rand deposit multiplied by 1 plus 18%. And this is not 3, this is 2. What are we getting there? Okay. Abu, I'm taking your answer. Hopefully it's correct. I have my calculator in front of me, but I don't want to waste time and do that long calculation by myself. So I'll wait until somebody can confirm Abu's answer. Sanele, I see you've been up to date with our calculations. So let's wait for your answer. Okay. This is basically my final answer. While we are waiting for confirmation that this final answer is correct, are there any questions on this? There you go. Shulani has confirmed our answer, so that's cool. This is the correct calculation. Now, as Abu has actually mentioned, and I didn't, or he didn't actually mention it, but he got really close to getting to another way to calculate this. I actually didn't even see it, but the other way we could do it is we could still treat it as 2 separate investments, but we would say investment 1 was 1,000 rand over 5 years, and then investment 2 would be 2,000 rand. So 2,000 rand would be my p-value just as 2,000 rand alone, and we would calculate the future value of that over 2 years. So that, and then we'd have to add those 2 amounts. So that could be another way that we could have done it. But up until this point, I hope that we're all understanding, that we're with me, that it's making sense. I'm not seeing questions, so I'm gonna move on. Let's look at something a little bit new. Now, a very strange formula. All of a sudden, there's a new variable that's being introduced to us. And this variable is the m variable. Oh, boy. This variable is my m variable. Now, what I want you guys to notice is it's still the same formula. It's still a is equals to p, 1 plus I to the exponent of n. The only difference is that we have introduced this variable of m. So Nelly, I know not all of the teachers give it to us as a formula as such. They might just tell you to divide and multiply by your periods. But I know for sure you will do questions like this, whether or not you've been given this formula. Okay, now what is my m? My m basically tells me about my compounding periods. So if we're looking at m, my m tells me the number of compounding periods in 1 year. Now, firstly, let's talk about what do I mean by compounding period. When we have compound interest, what it means, remember, is that we have interest on top of interest on top of interest on top of interest. But when we talk about a compounding period, really all that it means is that if I say we have an annual compounding period, it means that my interest is only added once a year. So I calculate and I keep track of my interest over the year, but I only really add it to my base amount one time at the end of the year. If I tell you my compounding period is biannually, think about what we know about this word bi, bicycle, two wheels, bi means two. So it means that twice in the year my interest is added. So it means 6 months go by, I've calculated my interest, and then after at that point at 6 months, I add my interest. And then for the next 6 months, interest is calculated on top of this interest that we've now added. Okay, so the more we compound in 1 year, the more times we compound, the higher our interest is going to be, because really it's more on top of more on top of more on top of more. When we compound interest once, that interest that we calculate over the year is based on the beginning amount at the beginning of the year. But when we have a daily compounding of interest, it means that I calculate interest today and I add it to my original amount today. And then when I'm calculating my new interest tomorrow, I'm using a higher amount because it's that original amount plus yesterday's interest. And that is how it carries on from year to year. So let's look at what my M means. My M asks, how many compounding periods are there in 1 year? So if we have an annual compounding period, your M is 1. And why we didn't really worry about this so far is because so far, all of our questions have been annual compounding. If you think about annual compounding, we would have been dividing our interest by 1, which basically doesn't do anything. And we would have been multiplying our n by 1, which also, it just stays the same. So that's why we haven't really been too concerned about adding our m before. But now that we are going to introduce to you guys different compounding periods, this formula becomes important. And knowing how many compounding periods are in a year based on these words is also very important. So if they say interest is compounded biannually, it means that there are 2 compounding periods in the year. If they say interest is compounded quarterly, it means there are 4, 100% Narisha. If they say monthly, it means at the end of every month, I'm going to add my interest to my original amount. And so that means I'm going to add interest to my original amount 12 times because there are 12 months in the year. If we compound our interest weekly, that is going to give me 52, and daily is going to give me 365 compounding periods. Okay, so now that we've done this, I want you guys to look at this question. It is now 18:48. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to attempt to do this question. Everything is exactly the same as you know it, except we now have to include this m in our equation. How is it 52? Are there not 52 weeks in a year? Sorry. There we go. That is why it's 52. Sanele. If we compound our interest weekly, it means every week we add our interest. And how many weeks are there? There are 52 weeks. Oh, my voice is about to go. So Um, Tidumalo, you're asking, so it's all weeks, ma'am. What do you mean it's all weeks? What is all weeks? Okay, it is 1850, as in m is equals to 1, or the m is equals to 4. So I'm not entirely sure what it is you're asking, but you're going to look at your question. And let's look at this example. They've told me here that my interest is compounded monthly. So if they've told me that my interest is compounded monthly, I know if interest is compounded monthly, that means there are 12 compounding periods in 1 year. So because there are 12 compounding periods, I'm going to insert 12 in place of m in my equation. I hope that makes sense, Tidimalo. It's not all weeks. Your m is going to depend on how they've told you interest is compounded. So because they've told us monthly, yeah, I'm going to use m as 12. If they've told me interest is compounded weekly, we're going to use 52. Okay, and it is time for us to do this answer. So they've told us Seppo invests 40,000 Rand. Immediately, I know that's my P value. For 5 years, that's my N value. At 16% per annum, that is my I value. And it's compounded monthly. So I now have my M value. Now that I have my unknowns, let's go sub it into our formula and calculate our unknown. So I'm not going to write out the formula again. I'm just going to go in here. This would be 40,000, 1 plus, and this here is irritating me. Get hold it for now. 1 plus, and my I is 16. M is going, and this is not just 16, but 16%, very important. My M is going to be 12. N is going to be 5. And M is again 12. Put it all into your calculator, and we get 88,000 Rand, 552, no, 88,552 Rand and 28 cents. Okay, that is that. Now, I want us to do this next question, and it's really going to show us how when we compound our interest a lot, it really, or when we have multiple compounding periods, it really increases the amount of interest that we end up having to pay. So let us go and let's look at this. They said we have 24,000 Rand that's deposited. Immediately, that's my P value. Into a savings account for 10 years. Immediately, that's my I value. At an interest rate of 11.5% per annum, this is going to be my, and look at me, this is going to be N over here. That's my N. This over here is my I. And then they ask us to calculate how much money is in the savings account at the end of 10 years in each of the following cases if the interest is compounded annually, quarterly, monthly, and daily. So immediately I know I'm going to have to do 4 calculations. So it's going to be P is equals to 1 plus I over M in times M. And then what I want to do is I want to control C, V. So we're going to have that there. We're going to have that there. And let's bring in a last one that we're going to do up here. Okay. So what I firstly want to tell you guys is I want to tell you guys that when you see interest per annum, please do not be fooled and do not think that that means that your compounding period is annual. It's not. Per annum interest just means that that is the interest you are charged over the year, but you have to specifically look for what your compounding periods are. So we're going to substitute everything in here, and I want us to look at what our A value is going to be for each one. So up here, let's do interest compounded annually. My P is going to be 24,000. I'm going to have 1 plus my I is 11.5%. M is going to be, because it's annual compounding, this is just going to be 1. And then we have N, which was 10 times 1. Why 1? Because M is my number of compounding periods. And because it's annual, there's only going to be 1. Sanele, you're asking me. I'm going to take your answer and I'll double check it just now. 728,72. Let me check. 24,000, 1 plus 11.5%, close brackets, to the exponent of 10. 71,278.72 rand, 100%. So this is what our future value is when our interest is compounded annually. Let's look at what it would be if we compounded it quarterly. So we'd have everything the exact same, except our M value is going to change to 4. 24,001 plus 11.5% over 4. Why 4? They told me my interest is compounded quarterly. That means that 4 times in the year, we go and add interest. My N is going to be 10, but multiplied by M, which is 4. What are we getting? 75,577 rand, 4 cents. So immediately, I want you to see, look at this answer and look at this answer. Do you see that when it was compounded quarterly, we immediately had more interest that was added? Okay. Let's look at now what happens when we compound it monthly. Okay. Again, everything is going to be the exact same, except tell me, guys, if we compound it monthly, what is my M going to be? Oh, thank you very much. 74. If we say we're compounding monthly, guys, what is my M? Here we go. Thank you, guys. That is going to be 12. Now let's do this calculation and let us see what is the amount we are getting here. I love that you guys are doing the calculations. It makes me super, super happy. 1 plus 11.5% divided by 12, close brackets, exponent of 120. I'm getting 75,382 rand 74 cents. Yes, okay. You guys have the answer in. So immediately look at the difference. It is a higher amount. So the more we compound in a year, the more interest is collected. And lastly, to end off our lesson, let us look at the last one when we compound it daily. When I compound it daily, my M should be what? Percent. 100% Narisha. It is 365. My N is going to be 10 times 365. And what answer are we getting here? Let me also do it. Okay, I am getting 75. Amen. 75,782 Rand 90 cents. Okay, I see Sanele and Abua in the chat with the same answer. Okay, now, so that is it for our lesson today. I know it was long, and I'm sorry. If you want to do extra practice questions, here are some extra questions for you to have a look at. If you have questions on the work that we did today,